The Mitsubishi Hachikyu Shiki Soko Sentosha, try saying that 10 times fast, or otherwise known as the Type 89 IFV, was Japan's primary infantry fighting vehicle. However, the Type 89 faces a rather serious predicament. Of the planned 300 that were supposed to be built, only 120 of them were actually made. That's less than 50% of the target production number. To make matters worse, production has halted completely on the Type 89. So why is this? What happened to the Type 89? Why did its production get cancelled, and what's the replacement? The Type 89 starts in a similar situation to another, more infamous IFV, the Bradley. Both the Bradley and the Type 89 were made in response to the success of the Soviet BMP and the birth of the IFV concept. For those not in the know, the difference between an IFV and an APC is that an APC transports troops to the front line in an armored unit, but that's about it. Think of something like an M163. An IFV, on the other hand, can deploy troops to fight alongside them. Essentially, troops are able to dismount and fight alongside a light tank on the battlefield. The Type 89, while a response to the BMP, was first and foremost made to modernize Japan's aging APCs, Type 60 and Type 73 respectively. It was also developed alongside the Type 90, being a unit meant to complement and support the Type 90 on the battlefield. The Type 89 began development as early as 1980, had 4 prototypes built in 1984, which were tested until 1986. It was finally accepted into service in 1989, hence the designation. It features a 35mm Oerlikon autocannon and the capability to launch 2 Nanakyu Shiki Taishite Taisensha Yudodan, or Type 79 GMOT missiles. For a type of stock close wire-guided missile, most similar to missiles like the BGM-71 TOW, Swingfire, and 9M113 Concourse. 300 of these vehicles were planned for production. However, in 1999, a grand total of 58 were produced. In 2014, only an extra 62 would be added to the stockpile. This brings the grand total up to 120, and to cap it off, production only lasted from 1989 to 2004. That's just 15 years of production time, even shorter than that of the Type 90. So what caused the abandonment of the Type 89? Type 89 faces a similar story to the Type 90. First came the Japanese economic bubble, subsequent crash, and collapse of the Soviet Union. Type 90 effectively entered an era where the biggest threat fell in on itself, and China had not yet been perceived as a rising superpower. The need for the Type 89 basically evaporated overnight, as far as Japanese politicians and military analysts were concerned at the time. To top this off, the Type 89 follows the same production and design philosophy as the Type 90, basically to a T. Almost all the Type 89 systems and subsystems are built in Japan, with the exception of, you probably guessed it, the autocannon. This made the Type 89 the most expensive IFV to produce at its time. Compared to its American counterpart of the same era, the M2 Bradley, Type 89 is an extra $340,000. Keep in mind that these values are not adjusted for inflation. The Bradley was also able to fire the BGM-71D TOW-2 missiles, and the Type 79 GMOTs are more comparable to the predecessor, the TOW-1s. This gives the Type 89 a relatively high price tag for a vehicle that isn't all that advanced. As such, its production was subsequently cancelled in 2018 officially. On top of this, Japan's doctrine changed from the end of the Cold War. The JSDF, not facing any imminent threats after the Soviet Union's collapse, no longer needed large-scale deployments. Furthermore, the Type 89 is deemed by the Japanese MOD to be unupgradable. That is, the FCS, missile systems, power pack, and armor protection systems are not capable of handling a modern battlefield, and the cost to upgrade the vehicles to modern standards would be hard to justify against developing a completely new vehicle. Emphasis shifted away from the Type 89 in favor of the new Type 96 APC and Type 16 MCV, the latter of which contains the chassis for Japan's new wheeled IFV. Alongside it comes the adoption of the Finnish Patria platform. Type 89 largely fell victim to the same problems that the Type 90 faced: an economic recession, collapse of the Soviet Union, and subsequent evaporation of its intended role and need. High costs drove production to a near standstill, and low production led to the Type 89 being unable to meet modern standards. With costs running too high to modernize all the Type 89s, it's effectively dead in the water, waiting for replacements. That somber note on the Type 89 is where we're going to have to leave you with this vehicle, and I'll see you all in the next one.